Much, Dr. Mritika. Now we move on to the next talk, that is implant exposure and prevention to cure. And I'd like to invite Dr. Rutuja Thomas to do the needful, and she's from Delhi Vision Eye Care. Over to you, Dr. Rutuja, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sonam, and I thank Dr. Fairuz for including me in this session. So I'll be talking about implant exposure, and right at the outset, I'd like to mention that the incidence of implant exposure is declining. I don't know if this is documented in any way, but just over the past 6 years from when I started fellowship to now in practice, we are seeing less and less of implant exposure, and maybe we can have an ocularis perspective also on that. So I'll be covering it under these topics. So implant exposure mainly presents like this. This is a porous implant. You can see that the surface is exposed, and you can see the inflamed and retracted conjunctiva around it. So what are some of the causes for this? Intraoperatively, it could be actually the cause for the evisceration. Was there any melting of the sclera? Was there any other inflammatory issues? While putting the implant inside, was it placed too far forward? Was the closure of the anterior tenon capsule not meticulous, the way Dr. Mritika had shown? Was it not like that? And any irregular surface of an implant can mechanically erode through the conjunctiva. That's important to remember. So the size of the implant, of course, like she mentioned, -2 from the axial length. The tension at the time of closure is very important. It's important to also use a sizer, even if you've decided on a size of an implant, use a sizer intraoperatively, because if it's oversized, you can have the extrusion very early. Now, the implant itself, the older implants, hydroxyapatite and porous polyethylene implants, they were prone to exposure because of the dehiscence, and even after a slight exposure, they would need removal because they would get infected. Now, the additional methods that were used earlier, like wrapping the implants with polypropylene mesh, was also associated with exposure and very difficult to treat, but less exposure with wrapping with sclera. The pegging of the implants for motility was also noted to result in exposure. Now, certain prosthesis factors also are important, whether the prosthesis was poorly adapted, that is rough on the surface or sharp edges. Was there any prolonged conjunctival trauma resulting from that? Any inflammation and thinning subsequently leading to exposure? Now, the initial use of a conformer in this situation is very crucial, and the maintenance of the prosthesis is also important. And it's good to have a good ocularist, and my great ocularist is there in the audience, so it's good to have somebody who you can keep in touch with for these things. So post-operative causes, I've listed it as 6 Ps. That is post-operative infection that can develop at any time post-operatively, poor wound healing, poorly fitting prosthesis, any pressure points that are present between the implant and the prosthesis, poor blood flow due to a variety of causes. Any pyogenic granuloma could also be suggestive that an implant may expose later on. So poor wound healing factors include any cicatricial conditions or any radiation exposure, so it's important to factor in these causes while you're assessing an implant exposure. So this is a typical case of implant exposure where you can see the discharge also accumulated. This would typically require a removal and a period of waiting for the infection to subside, maybe even send a culture and then do a secondary implant later on. This is an exposed silicone implant. Here you see not too much of congestion and not too much of discharge present here. So you might actually be able to re-implant a smaller implant and get away with that. So each case is different. And this is another implant exposure, a patient who had a porous implant who waited quite some time before coming in. So he finally developed a kind of contracted socket, and this is probably just the leftover wrapping material actually which is left behind, and a small part of the implant. So these kind of implants, they tend to sort of disintegrate as well if a large part of it is exposed. So in such patients, you can go ahead and do a secondary implant, or in this case of a very contracted socket, we did a dermis fat graft and he did well. Now, some patients can have a complete extrusion that it's completely melted and the implant is not even present there. In these cases, you would need a secondary implant. So, if implant extrusion or exposure is not treated adequately, you can have other eyelid malpositions which develop. And the major management is that if there is no infection, you can do an early secondary implant, and that helps to again reduce the contracture later on. If there is an infection, wait for the infection to settle, do a culture and treat the infection. If there's too little of a cover when you're planning for surgery, you can use an MMG or a scleral patch graft. And if the volume is also inadequate, you can do a dermis fat graft. If the fornix needs to be assessed, you can do a fornix forming suture. So this is just an example where you have an exposed implant, you have to go all around the implant, dissect the conjunctiva off, and you can implant a scleral patch graft like this and try to cover the patch graft as far as possible with the surrounding conjunctiva. Now, a scleral graft is usually sandwiched between the tenons and the conjunctiva to decrease the chance of scleral melt post-operatively. And you can also do a dermis fat graft, and this is a case wherein it's also been done with a fornix forming suture. Now, there is a new study wherein there is this little change in the thought that even if you have an exposed porous implant, because if there may be any kind of monetary issues, you can actually take that implant, rotate it, and then re-implant it with the non-exposed side, that is the side which had the maximum sclera covering it. So this is something that we can think about. And that's all for implant exposure. If any questions, I would be happy to discuss. Thank you.
Yeah, Rituja, excellent. But nowadays there is a trend. We observe more exposure on porous. Are you prefer still porous implant?
No, sir. We only use PMMA implants.
The take-home message is this: that porous implant, if that is quality is not good, whatever quality, there is a chances in long standing also more exposure. So better, even if we compare in one of my studies, this silicone versus acrylic. Acrylic works better, less infection with silicone. And most of the time, generally in our colleges, it was mentioned, it was always done in a minority. Minority means infected OT. That's not the protocol actually. In a oculoplasty, we can just popularize the technique. If there is no chance of infection, ultrasound, it is a painful blind eye trauma case, better we can go ahead in a clean OT with a good illumination, good microscope. They term as a major OT, one minor OT. Oculoplastic surgeons always mention in other hospitals a minor OT. Whatever orbitotomy, if you don't, the receptionist will, are you doing in a minor OT? So that's the point. So we want to eliminate that part, then we can do lots of work. So that's one important.
Can I just comment here? Very good comment thing which you said. So worse than minor OT is, some people call it septic OT. No OR can be septic, right? Every operation theater that you operate is aseptic. So there is no concept of a septic OT. We oculoplastic surgeons, we always operate in an aseptic OT.
I am working in some hospitals where that a culture growth in septic is less in compared to the phaco OT. That's the true. This is the true factor as per the report I am showing. So this is our phaco OT culture report. This is the septic OT culture report, because we are taking more care.
I think this is what we all face: intraocular surgeries versus extraocular surgeries, and invariably we're termed as, operating in septic OTs.
It is also acceptable, intraocular surgery or cataract surgery OT. But if someone asking labeled you as a minor OT surgeon doing orbitotomy, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, we can start a petition.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Rituja. That was lovely.